What is your real life experience with? It's hard to win an argument with a smart person. But it's damn near impossible to win an argument with a stupid person. My mom's entire argument tactic was to interrupt the other person as soon as they opened their mouth. It didn't matter if you were calm and reasonable and respectful. The moment sound came out of you, she would come in with greater volume. She usually didn't have much to say, so she would literally repeat herself just to interrupt you. Even if you paused and let her speak, if she was out of stuff to say, she would wait quietly until you try to talk again, then interrupt you with something she already said. She wasn't even subtle about what she was doing. She was prideful about how great of a debater she was. She thought this childish and disrespectful crap actually made her strong and respectable. I don't think she ever realized that she didn't actually win any arguments, but simply wore the other person down until they gave up on a constructive adult conversation with her. My aunt does the same thing. We used to give up and let her win, but as I've gotten older I've gotten stubborn and don't let it go. My sister glaring at me the entire time. I have a family member that does this. I just stop and look at her and say shut up while I'm speaking. She said I was disrespectful. So I asked her when she ever got the impression that I respected her. Now she doesn't talk to me, which is what I wanted in the first place. For people that keep interrupting me, I usually just hold my hand up in a stop sign and just say I'm still talking over and over again until they give up and finally stop. I am dealing with a housemate who does exactly this, with a wickedly bad temper on top of it. Her boyfriend is an old friend of mine, and I wanted to help them out since they were living in her mom's house last year. I did not know her well at all, and I deeply regret thinking that I could reason with her. She wields her temper like it's a weapon, and anytime you try and express what you or someone else is feeling, she immediately argues and invalidates you. She has told her partner she is going to kill herself in order to win arguments. Oftentimes the things she is spouting as an argument are projections of her behavior or projections of her temper. She does not respect the boundaries of others, but demands that her boundaries be respected in any conversation to find compromise and even ground is met with anger. Her lack of control over her words once she's triggered are some of the meanest, most vitriolic things I've ever heard from anyone. My partner, who was her friend and got her a job at her work, also had her own falling out with this person and now won't come over to my house due to fear of this person's behavior. I am exhausted. I probably have to deal with this for another 2 months. My mom kind of was like this. Whenever we got in a fight, which she was responsible for the reason, for most of middle and high school her response was don't blame me for your problems with your father. This could be a response to anything including asking if I wanted to go/do something, and when I said no she would say too bad you're going. My blow up at her had her using that response. How does my relationship with my dad, which was much better than with her, have anything to do with you asking if I wanted to do something when you already decided the answer has to be yes? Just tell me that I don't have a choice. One of my friend's friends was like this. I even asked her about it, in the context of what the F is Sarah's deal with interrupting and overtalking? My friend said she's just like that. So I asked Sarah and she denied she did it, in front of several people, all of whom immediately contradicted her. She insisted she didn't interrupt or overtalk, so we started recording each other conversations when she was around, and documented her behavior over a couple months. Another friend took the clips and edited it into a 6 to 7 minute video. A couple of us sat with her intervention style and made her watch it. By the end of it she was crying, and we just hugged her. The goal was not to humiliate, but demonstrate, but she was pretty wiped out nonetheless. It's a tough thing to see when you're in your early 30s. The outcome? Well, she got better, just a little. One time she stopped and said, OMG, I'm doing it right now, aren't I? And another time I said you're doing that thing and I'd like to finish my sentence. Sometimes she gets pissy about it, but we don't hang that often. And when she's not being a jerk she's really kind of cool, even likes to make sure everyone is taken care of, so I kind of suspect a narcissism axis disorder of some sort. Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I have a tendency to do this. I'm just trying to share something and relate to the person speaking, but I'm so scatterbrained I try to get the thought out before it leaves, and before I know it I've interrupted way too many times in a conversation. Frown. My boyfriend used to, gently, tease me about how talkative I am or my interrupting habit until he met my family. I'm the youngest of all girls who love to talk. So interrupting/being loud was the only way I could be heard growing up and just became a habit. She might have been embarrassed, but you're good friends and did her a favor. I've become more aware of my tendency to interrupt, and I think it's made me more pleasant company. A friend in school was convinced he could find a triangle whose angles wouldn't add up to 180 degrees after learning the rule in class. I just couldn't get him to understand that if he finds some shape that doesn't fit the definition of a triangle, then by definition he has not found a triangle. Edit, appreciate everyone telling me about curved geometry and to try the proof, but for context it was over 10 years ago when we were about 12. He could understand it was achievable in curved space, but he wanted to break the rule with a legit 100% flat triangle. I deal with entitled wealthy investors every day. The only thing worse than arguing with a stupid person is a stupid wealthy person who thinks they are important. All types of people in leadership positions do that shit. I was in the Marine Corps and made it into more than a few company or battalion meetings, and the amount of word salad that came from everyone that spoke was astounding. Sometimes it was like the person speaking just changed all the verbs and adjectives and said the same thing the last person said. And you had to sit there until everyone from the top down spoke. Met a flat earther. I think he was just going along with it to be contrarian. He said the whole thing was a conspiracy. Tried asking him where the edge was, and he said it was a ring of ice. Tried explaining that for his conspiracy to work, literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world in various space agencies would need to keep the secret, yet not one has come forward with the truth. Didn't work. Tried telling him we have literal photos and clips of the round Earth spinning. He said it was a lie. Not matter how much logic the rest of us threw at him, he just refused to accept it. We all came away thinking less of him for being so stubborn. Long ago, over 20 years ago, had a lovely beat my head against the wall discussion with a young lady who had no children of her own, and no experience raising children with disabilities. And she proceeded to tell me that my wife and I needed to be firmer and more strict with our autistic son, so that he would snap out of it, and start talking and stop acting autistic. I cannot remember how exactly I phrased my response. And it was in Spanish, not my native language, but it was basically a polite version of, "Pound sand, you have no idea what you are talking about." Used to have a friend who would legit argue with you about your own experiences, and tastes/opinions, and pretty much anything else. Some examples include insisting that neither my husband nor I could possibly remember September 11th because we were only 11 at the time. Insisting that no one could possibly remember anything from before the age of 10. Said I was lying that I can remember every teacher I ever had, and have memories from as young as 3 years old. Tried to start an argument that polio isn't contagious. If you liked some piece of art, clothing, home design, or other purely opinion-based thing that was simply not her taste, you were wrong. When I expressed an interest in living abroad for some of my life, she tried to sit me down and lecture me that she knew better than me about whether or not I would enjoy it. Her conclusion was that I wouldn't. Refused to acknowledge that professional Adobe products are now only available by subscription, and insisted that I must be wrong in telling her so. Began explaining why pattern making for clothing would be too hard for me to learn, moments after I explained to her what it was. She had never heard of it before and had no idea how clothes were made. Started an argument with me that my nephew is not adorable, and that no one really finds children cute, they just pretend to. Wouldn't hear of the possibility that someone could go to Iceland and enjoy themselves because her brother had a stopover at the airport there and was very bored. Got upset when our friend group didn't approve of her brother calling a black man an anar because he needed to make the guy really angry. There were so many more, but I can't remember them all. Every interaction with her was an exercise in frustration. Her only tactics for debating or arguing were repeating the same stupid points over and over again after they've been combated, making you feel like you're emotional or unreasonable when she said something incredibly hurtful and offensive, and talking over everyone while being very condescending and rude. In school for my now job, at the beginning there was a woman sitting next to me. I was like 22 or 23, she was easily 40. Fine, at the beginning we got along well, then she started to desperately search for similarities, it got annoying. Then she always asked me about stuff the teachers said while the teachers still talked, basically wanted a live translation from me but without changing the language. Of course, resulting in both of us not being able to listen anymore. No way to explain to her she should just listen herself and at least try to understand. I would have happily tried to help her afterwards when I had time to hear it myself. First clue, she was not so bright. I was incredibly over her, but stayed nice. Then we were supposed to work in pairs on a small but not easy task. Of course, she didn't understand a word. I explained one thing, don't remember what, her for the umpteenth time, fine. Sometimes it's cursed, you just don't get one thing. But then she proceeded to tell me I was wrong, fine as well, if she can tell me why. But no, it was a matter of I have no clue what's up with that, I don't understand it in the slightest, but I just know you're wrong about it just because. Spoiler, I was not wrong. I reread it 10 times in our sources, found different sources, tried to break it down to basically elementary school levels. She stopped listening to me and just continued to argue I was wrong because I was wrong or something. Remember, that woman was more than 15 years older than me and around 40. I lost my patience, stopped talking to her and just presented the task by myself. She did not admit anything after the fact. Shortly after she changed seats after a different incident, and not long after that she dropped out. Surprise, surprise. I had an argument with my garage door installer. He was installing the motor and I noticed that it was 1/4 horsepower. I immediately told him that I had ordered the bigger motor. He said that this was the biggest. I then proceeded to tell him that I ordered the 1/2 horsepower engine. He told me that 1 is too small, this is bigger. What the F? I said, how do you figure that? He said everybody know that 4 is bigger that 2. In the most sarcastic voice. There was no convincing him that 1/2 was bigger than 1/4. I finally just had to call his boss.